Hello, listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is your host today, switching it up a little bit, Sophia Ciminello. We have an editors only special episode today, and it only felt right, I think, for me to step into the hosting position as the resident New Yorker here. We will be recapping the New York Film Festival, which we all attended, and then we'll be getting into some Oscar categories, going into cinematography and editing. But like I said, I'm not alone today. Joining me, we have Erik Anderson.
I love this idea of Sophia hosting these episodes. I can just sit back and pretend that I'm guesting on Oscar Wilde, and I'm loving it.
I love it too. And Ryan McQuade.
I just got me and my street meat here and a slice of pie, and I'm ready to go. This is the New York show, and Sophia's running it. This is awesome.
Thank you guys for asking me. I think it's going to be really fun, and it feels different, I have to say, to be in the hosting chair for this. But yeah, we have a lot to get into. I think we can start with the long 18-day New York Film Festival, which at the time of recording, we have had the closing night film, but films will continue playing
It's
this
still going.
weekend. It's
It's
still
still
going.
going.
All through Monday. I saw a 9 a.m. screening this morning of Sentimental Value. I am maybe going to see some more things through the weekend. We will see. I can't quit you, New York Film Festival. It will never end.
It really is like a festival, Sophia, right? Just made for the people there. And if you're traveling there, you're just royally screwed to like figure out
Yeah.
when the right time to go is. Like Erik went the first week, I went like second week, a little bit of the third. But like this is it from the start of the press screenings, right? It is like 5, 6 weeks, it feels like.
Well, that's the thing too. I didn't even mention the press screenings, which start an entire week or
Before
more before the opening night film even. So we've been going at this for such a long time. It is definitely, I think, designed for people who live in the city, who can go to the evening screenings. So if you are visiting from out of town, I think it's still a lot of fun, but you definitely have to pick and choose
Mm.
and plan your schedule. But I think just recapping our overall experience, I know on a few episodes, we've already covered a few of the films that we've seen at the festival, whether they were Cannes holdovers or just some other movies we had seen throughout the year. But what was your overall experience just at the festival? What did it feel like for the time that you were here? Did you have any first-time viewings, I'll say, other than world premieres, maybe that you want to talk about?
So this was only my second New York Film Festival, which is still so very strange to me. But the timing of it for me is always really odd because I have the Mill Valley Film Festival over in California, and they overlap completely. And then that being my local festival and my one where I'm sort of a big fish in a small pond, it's really hard not to want to, you know, what is it, play for the home team or whatever
Mm-hmm.
you sports people say. And then I can use we language when
It's weird he said that with pom-poms. That was interesting.
basically
Like the movie Palms, which I could totally
Like
see you being in.
it is. Palms is really like it's like the book club adjacent
Mm-hmm.
kind of, yes. Anyway. Uh-oh, tangent. This is almost director watch already.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
Um
Yes.
but yes, so I only stayed for the press screening week of the festival, so I wasn't even there for the festival proper once it began. But that was more than enough time for me to watch films, and even more so to really fully absorb New York City and my absolute love of New York in a way that is completely different than any other metropolitan city in the US. I love San Francisco. That is my town. I love LA even. But the pure walkability of New York, both for the festival and just for everyday life, is kind of unbeatable. And, we talked about that a little bit. I was getting in 20,000 steps a day, which is insane for
Mm-hmm.
me. I sit all day long. So it was quite wonderful.
He has people
Um
carry him everywhere as well.
well, yes, I usually
Leave.
have the 4 Roman gladiators, walking me
Do you
down
pay them a fair wage?
pay.
There you
What's
go.
that?
There you
I
go.
was gonna say one
There you
of
go.
them is Paul Mescal.
Exactly. Exactly. A
Not anymore.
freebie.
No, he's lost. He lost all that.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Well, it's always good to see both of you in New York. I love when you come to visit. It is just the best city. Ryan, what about you? I know you came a little bit after Erik started and then stayed into the festival.
Yeah, Erik basically, like, if you want to do like a relay thing, he passed the baton and then left, and then I ran the rest of it, and then I handed it off to you, and now you're finishing it. No, I was staying with some friends in Brooklyn, but I was able to like get the full, like, take the train and take the whole experience. Now I understand what Sophia was talking about all these years about, like, it's a trek to get to this damn festival for her, because now she doesn't live in that area anymore. But it was great. I love New York. I love its accessibility. I love the press screenings. Truly, like, press screenings in the morning are great, and then being able to have those press conferences and then have your nights open if you want to explore the city or go to as many screenings of one battle after another as you want, or whatever the case may be. Just go have a good dinner and talk about the films. You asked about, like, have we seen films for the first time
Hmm.
that were not world premieres. I did actually see a couple of films. I know you guys saw a couple of films too, so we can kind of talk about those real quick. One of the big ones that I crossed off my list, I don't know if you've seen it yet, Sophia. Erik, I know you haven't seen it yet, was By Gant's Resurrection. Was a big film that we all kind of were like, we're not watching a 2.5 hour movie at Cannes at 10 o'clock at night kind of thing. And
Right.
we said we would wait for this festival to do it. And a 6 o'clock screening is actually not bad to see this movie.
Okay, that's a good
Um,
tip.
it is a little sleepy though. I will say that. So maybe I think the 2:30 spot is just a right move for it. But anyway, By Gan, this is wonderful director. This is like an insane sort of project to kind of describe in that it's super science fictiony in the setup about, like, these other beings and how they have the ability to dream in a humanity that doesn't dream anymore. And there's these sort of dream hunters out there trying to shut down the dreamers. And the way that this sort of creature shuts down this dreamer in particular is the use of an old fashioned technology called cinematography is how it's used in the film. I'm not even kidding. That's how it's used. And so it's different dreams and in vignettes and sort of different sections and different genres, and but mostly with the same main character through different points of Chinese history and Chinese cinema. And it's really good for the most part. Like
Hmm.
like 3 out of the 5 sections are really great. Visually, they're all great. Plot wise, they're all one or two kind of lose the thread. But the ending of this movie is incredible. There's a motif that I will not spoil that pays off immensely. And it takes the movie from like oh, okay, that was fine, to like, holy shit, was that actually like really good? And like one of the better films of the year. And so it's an ending that wraps up really, really well. And I'd be really curious to hear what you guys thought of it when you guys do see it. It's quite beautiful and touching of an ending. And I was in a crowd mostly of critics, and they just ate it up. And so curious how an audience would really respond to that one.
Yeah, that feels like a classic New York Film Festival movie to me, where I think it'll play really well with the critics. And then you will have, I think about my screening of Queer last year when I overheard the couple in front of me saying how much they hated the movie, and then the couple behind me talking about how much they loved it. It feels like one of those types of
It is that.
artistic experiences that will connect with some people, but others might find it a little too hard to lock into.
There will be also probably a snooze factor. Like, there was a
Okay.
guy next to me when I rewatched Jay Kelly at a public screening. He was snoring the whole time, and I'm like, Jay Kelly's not a
I
movie
can't.
you sleep during. Like, it's got
It's pretty
dialogue, it's
lively.
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty lively, pretty quick, and like and pretty breezy. And I'm like, how the fuck are you gonna survive in Resurrection, dude? Like,
Ooh.
he would be out. So like, everyone have an espresso before watching Resurrection, because it is a quite daring and beautiful film visually.
Okay. Yeah. And Erik, I know you and I both really loved Peter Hujar's Day. I don't know if that was the one you were maybe going to mention.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the a sort of 1-2, what I think would be a wonderful double feature, and that's Peter Hujar's Day and Late Fame,
Mm.
together, both very quintessentially New York films, sort of about the obsessiveness of a certain type of fame or dated famous person, and really about recollection and kind of how nostalgia is not really a wonderful thing sometimes. But yeah, Peter Hujar is really so high on my list of anything this year. I didn't need another reason to be obsessed with Ben Whishaw, but him doing maybe my favorite just gay performance. I mean, he is gay, so that already is there, but there's something about just his very specific cadence and the way he lays on a couch or sits in a chair, or
Mm-hmm.
just it's it's the gayest thing I've ever seen. Period. It's just insane. It's a wonderful film. I love it so much. And then Late Fame, Willem Dafoe being this one-time poet who becomes this sort of, it's sort of like Dead Poet Society, this group that kind of elevates him out of obscurity, and then that group is really just a bunch of absolute ne'er-do-well fakes. I don't know, I loved it. It's just really 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 fun. So
Yeah.
I loved both of those. And then I saw something that I absolutely hated and was so disappointed
We'll talk
with.
about that.
Yeah, which
Well,
I think we've all seen
I think
now,
we've all
and
seen that. Yeah.
maybe we'll talk about how that blew up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we will definitely get to that and its reception here on Late Fame and Peter Hujar, though. I think that's a great double feature recommendation. And Sammy Birch, the writer of Late Fame, who also wrote May December, she has some words for the New York University graduates and students here, which I loved. I thought that was just really sharp. And yeah, can't recommend those highly enough. I think let's transition into talking about our world premieres. So there were some world premieres at the festival. This isn't typically a destination for many world premieres. We usually just have a handful, but this year it did feel like we had quite the meaty lineup. So a couple of world premieres, but then also obviously the carryovers that we've talked about. We all saw Anemone. So this is Ronan Day-Lewis, Daniel Day-Lewis's son, of course, his feature directorial debut. And in this film, he also pulls his father out of retirement. He had been on an 8-year acting hiatus. So it was obviously great to see him again. I think we were all on, I would say, similar, yet maybe some different pages, Ryan, when we get to you on Anemone and just how well it works overall. But I think what I will say, I mean, water is wet, fork found in kitchen. Daniel Day-Lewis is extraordinary as always. I think he delivers these monologues in absolutely beautiful ways. And it feels like a first feature, I'll say, but he also, I think Ronan Day-Lewis does take some risks with the material. And you can read my interview with him up on the site. But what did you both think of the film?
I really loved it. It does absolutely fall prey to many first time director folly. And I think Ronan Day Lewis, who's already an artist and a painter before this, a lot of times that makes perfect sense, to be able to then translate that into a moving image. And it sort of feels like that. A lot of the film feels like an indie rock music video. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like I could have just been watching, 2 hours of like a Radiohead visual album. And sometimes that can carry it for me enough. And then sometimes I'm just like, you know what? There's nothing here. I
Yeah.
this could have been a YouTube video. I'm not the type of person that goes to the theater to watch, a 2 hour album release of lyrics. That's just not what I would do. But this isn't quite that. It's certainly an elevated version of that because it is so gorgeous. But also for a film that has so many moments without dialogue, it is incredibly overwritten in others, and
Yeah.
that That is where I think it suffers the most. And I don't know if that is Ronan Day-Lewis's fault or if it's Daniel Day-Lewis's fault, but somebody is at fault.
Yeah, but in those monologues, it feels like, I don't know which one, but both of them together, they are writing theatrical, almost stage-like monologues, specifically for Daniel, of course. Ryan, we also saw this together because I saw it twice. The things I do for
She
my
had
love,
to.
Daniel
Speaking of
Day-Lewis.
Fork Found in Kitchen.
I know, right? What did
Yeah.
you think of it?
I'm different than both of you. I don't really remember most of this movie because I think it just evaporates within the minutes after seeing it. It's truly one of those movies that I was looking forward to because I love Daniel Day-Lewis. I'm not I'm not the leader of the blood cult like Sophia, but I am a very, very, very big fan. And if we all remember the movie star draft, I was the one that drafted him. But I didn't want to
Is he a
remind
movie
Sophia.
star?
Well, by this movie and its opening, probably not anymore. But what I can say is that, like, listen, Phantom Thread was this wonderful film that we all love, and it was like, okay, this is the last film he's going to ever make. And then we knew that wasn't going to happen. And he started coming out when Martin Scorsese had Killers of Flower Moon. He's giving him these tributes. And we're like, ooh, he's got something cooking. And we see him on the back of the bike in those photos. And we're like, what's that all going to mean? And you know what I mean? And it looks kind of like a buddy film, like a comedy. And that's not what this fucking movie is at all.
Nope.
Unless you're talking about the shit monologue, which is very funny. And that's honestly the only good part of the film. Like there's this one monologue that's really well written. It really gets to like use his acting prowess, and it's just perfectly staged and everything. And the rest of this movie is like, yeah, like an ASMR, Radiohead video
Mhm.
that has all this symbolism that really doesn't add much. You have the other characters kind of fall flat around Daniel Day-Lewis and his character. Like Sean Bean's wasted in this movie. Samantha Morton is not even a character. The son, Sophia was like, then we got Enzo vibes from
He reminded me so much of Enzo. Enzo, for listeners, is a film we saw at Cannes, and he's very similar to that
very
character.
similar to that.
Samuel Bottomley, the most British ass name ever.
Such a
like
British
he could be
name.
in Harry
For real.
Potter.
For real. Yeah, for real. He's actually going to be Voldemort. Maybe I'm becoming old like Erik, but I think that if you make a debut, you shouldn't have it be 2 hours and 5-10 minutes long. It should be somewhere in the 90 to an hour 45 range. And that's as much as I would have cut out of this film, because I do think it meanders a ton and it doesn't really have a sticking point to it. And it has one of those Sundance endings too, where it just plays a rock song and it ends, mysteriously. And you're just like, God damn it. Like there's potential here because visually it does look good. And I understand why Daniel Day-Lewis would want to make this movie because it's with his son. Like you can't be, like the math doesn't need to be a hard equation. This is simple addition and subtraction. And yet I agree with Erik. Like someone's got to be at fault for the script. And I don't know if it is the son or the father or both, or that Rebecca Miller left them alone for a little bit and they came up with this and, she should have come and helped. Like, mom, come clean up the boys' mess, like a little bit. Like, I don't know. But I can understand also why Focus would want to pick this up because it's Daniel Day fucking Lewis. Who wouldn't want to pick this up?
Yeah.
So I understand the inception and the creation of the project, but the execution of it is pretty poor. And yeah, I don't remember really any of this. And it was so sleepy. People around me were falling asleep. But I will say this, the highlight of the festival was that Sophia and I did get to meet Daniel Day-Lewis and we got to talk to him. And he's so nice. And I just wish that his movie was a little bit better. That's all.
He's so, so wonderful. And I'm happy that this movie is also really leaving the door open for him to return to other projects because now in interviews, he seems excited to get back out there. So let's do it. Speaking of Rebecca Miller, you brought her up, Ryan. You saw Mr. Scorsese. You have a review of the series up on the site. Just if you want to say a few quick things about
sure.
it.
I don't recommend watching 5 hours of a documentary in the middle of the night. But if you're going to watch one, do this one because it's great. Sophia and I, years ago over on another website, another podcast, we did a whole Scorsese series, and I linked to that inside the review. And it basically was at times in the 5 episodes, from episode 2 to 5, it was pretty much like a breakdown of every film and like the details you and I, Sophia, didn't get to in that episode. And it was just like, well, I struggled with the money, and I struggled with this, and I couldn't, this is where I met Bob, and this is when Bob introduced me to Leo, and Thelma came back for a Raging Bull, and and like, oh, I traded off for Cape Fear, and I really wanted to make Last Temptation of Christ, and he says that like 15 times, and then the whole like religious stuff about that. But the great part of this series is actually in the first episode, getting to learn about his family, learn about his friendships. Rebecca Miller gets interviews with his actual childhood friends, and
Wow.
she gets like actual interviews with Robbie Richardson before he passes away a couple of years ago, and De Niro and Kate Blanchett and DiCaprio and Daniel Day-Lewis. I wonder how Rebecca Miller got Daniel Day-Lewis to do this. I wonder. But they all did new interviews, and they all talk about him. Obviously, Thelma literally is breaking down edits of some of his iconic scenes, which is great stuff too. It's like, it's the little details in this series that make it special beyond the formulaic elements. But I do have one complaint, and I didn't mention this in the review. Well, there's two things that are great things. One, Spike Lee taking a dig at Quentin Tarantino without saying Tarantino's name. It's in there. And
Spicy.
she
Love
goes
it.
through every film in Scorsese's filmography except Hugo. And I
heard this.
And I was like, come on, it's Hugo. It's a movie about him, like literally talking about cinema, because it's right there. She just skips over it, and but there's a whole section on Shutter Island. I was so mad. I was like, come on.
Well, we know her least favorite Scorsese film now.
No, for real. And it was like, we could have talked about the 3D technology and all that stuff. And the last like 40 minutes of the final episode feel like we got to get everything in here. We got to move. And it's like, well, why didn't you just make it a 6 episode, or why didn't you just do more? But there also is some real interesting things, I will say, that she does tackle about Scorsese as a father. And it was really much tying into Sentimental Value, and was tying into, like Jay Kelly, about like these big figures that just kind of like leave their kids in the dust into their creativity. And it ends on this great note of like, I got to keep making cinema because like I got to keep moving, because that's what the doctors and everyone keep telling me to do. And so it kind of makes you like, okay, then make the next movie, Marty, please. We want to see it like now. Somebody finance it. But like, yeah, the Hugo erasure is unexcusable, and I'm mad, and I will not forgive her for it, because it's a beautiful film.
I gotta say, I'm not sure if I would have noticed its erasure, but I need to see it. I'm excited to watch it when it's out on Apple TV Plus, I think soon.
I think it's already out.
The 14th.
Or it's already out? Okay.
Yeah, it's already out. Or
Deep
it's
in
about
the
to be out.
throes
Yeah,
of
yeah.
Fall festival season.
I don't know.
I
Up
need
is
to watch
down,
it.
winds, embargoes. When
Is
are
this
things
thing
happening?
on? Yeah, that's what we're gonna get into next. So this is our closing night film. I saw this yesterday as part of our closing night series at the festival, and this is Bradley Cooper's new film with Will Arnett and Laura Dern. He also is in it. He plays a character named Balls. Yes, that is true. This is
Girl.
more unhinged Bradley Cooper, I will say, especially in this
So
film.
he's not reining it in.
He's not reining it in. Actually, he is introduced to us when he spills an entire container of oat milk and falls onto it on the floor.
As one does. I did that before I got on the show.
My favorite thing about Bradley Cooper's films is just how deranged they can really be. But I think that I prefer the high drama of Maestro and A Star is Born to something like this, which I think does feel a little bit smaller. It's definitely more of a dramedy. I think the audience was really liking it. The crowd was a little bit thin. I think people are a little bit tired right now at the festival. The closing night, by the time we get to it, I was expecting a sold out show, and it was not that, but the audience that was there was really into, I think, the stand-up scenes in the film overall. So This is about a man played by Will Arnett who gets a divorce and he finds himself in the New York City stand-up comedy scene. So it's a great New York movie, I think, too, but tonally very different from Bradley Cooper's first two features. So I'm curious how people will respond to it. I can imagine, though, just some moviegoers thinking this might be their favorite film of his, just because it feels a little bit more straightforward. It doesn't take a lot of creative risks that I think we've seen in some of his earlier films. I know that you'll both see it at your regional fests, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the time this actually publishes, I will have seen it. I'm seeing it tomorrow night.
Okay.
Well, I can understand though, Sophia, why everybody wasn't there to watch it, because everyone was seeing Roofman.
I
So
think everyone was seeing one battle after another again.
they were going to be like, "What's a Tron?" You know?
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah, that movie, which I don't know if I will see that, but I think the big
no.
film of the festival really was the secret screening, which was Marty Supreme. Lots of rumors, an early word, maybe leaked word that it was going to be Marty Supreme, but NYFF hadn't done a secret screening actually in a few years.
I was
They
gonna
hadn't
say,
had one over the past couple of years, so it was cool, I think, to see it again. This was definitely the hottest ticket of the festival. There were even, Erik, you told us separately, people tracking Kylie Jenner's jet to see if she was in New York, to give
Yep.
us a clue as to whether or not this would be the film. And I have to say, so I went to the secret screening and just the energy in the room, the energy in the lobby, even before this film started, was, I would say, intense, electric, the type of energy you want at a film festival. So they knew what they were doing here. A24 knew, I think, premiering this film here would get really incredible reactions, and it did. It was, I think, the perfect venue really to see it first because, Josh Safdie came out. He told us that he had just finished the film at 2 a.m. Then Timothée Chalamet came out to introduce it as well. And it is a wild ride. I actually really liked it. I thought the performances were really strong, but in particular, I mean, Jack Fisk, he is one of my favorites. And I just think what he does here to recreate 1950s New York and a number of other cities where the film takes us, I actually thought was just absolutely brilliant. The score is pretty incredible too. I think that Safdie does really retread a lot of the same territory that he does in Uncut Gems, which kind of surprised me. I think I expected this to be a movie about ping pong, about table tennis, and it is in some ways, but also not. We have a long stretch of this movie, I think, that actually reminded me a lot of After Hours. And I know people are comparing this movie to so many things, but he's essentially searching for money so that he can go to Tokyo for his next tournament so he can get revenge on another player, which is the overall conceit. But I actually thought the film was at its best when it wasn't in this kind of violent Safdie meets Scorsese zone and was instead really in the sports movie part of it. And what's funny about that is that I think we saw the smashing machine, and those fighting scenes did not work for me at all. They felt very cold and detached and distant, but I was so locked in to all of Timmy's ping pong scenes. I was kind of surprised because this is a new sport for me, I will say. I think his best performance is still Call Me by Your Name. That is still my favorite Chalamet, but it's way more exciting, I think, than his performance in A Complete Unknown, which to me felt a little bit more like your standard Oscar music biopic fare. And here, I'll say in the end, he totally won me over. Like some of it during the middle, I thought, okay, we've seen some of this before. But by the ending, I was actually like pretty moved by his performance. Gwyneth is also great. So what do you, I mean, you can ask me questions about the movie, but also I want to know what you guys thought just observing the reactions, because I mean, my reaction is very positive. I do have some quibbles with minor things like the sound and some of the editing actually, but my response was not this movie is going to save the world and give us world peace that we found, I think, from some of the tweets coming from people who were in the
Oh,
room.
sounded like
Well,
world peace to me.
I mean, a movie like this is obviously going to draw a lot of the certain type of film guy, fanatic, just the hoodie wearing flip flop kind of guy. And so that is their zone. So yeah, the response to it being pretty big and hyperbolic makes a lot of sense. What I'm more curious about is that even though this was clearly planned for a little bit of time, we've now seen two major films sort of upset an ongoing festival as a huge distraction from the actual festival films, because it's a special screening, a secret screening. It is not a programmed film of the festival, and
Right.
kind of shouldn't really be regarded that way. But this happened with One Battle After Another when they started screening that in the middle of Toronto, and it became the conversation and took everything out from that actual festival. And that happened here as well, and it was like nothing else mattered. It was only this film. And I think that is such an interesting thing to happen this year, and to happen twice.
I want to say that to your question, Sophia, about the reactions. My response to them was just like, okay, cool. Like people got to see a secret screening. Like people, and it was like a genuine secret screening. Like it almost reminded me of South by Southwest. When South by Southwest has a secret screening, people lose their ever loving minds. And I'm there every year, and I'm like, okay, cool. I just get to see a film, but all of you guys think you saw Christ.
Speaking
And
of hoodie wearing and
I'm just saying, no, I totally agree with you. Because like, I remember the year it was like John Wick 4, and people lost their minds when Keanu showed up. And so I think this is that there was, like you said, the rumors that this was going to be there for a while. It was a very young, male driven audience from what I understand.
Definitely.
Not a lot of voters there, a lot of journalists, a lot of people on that side of the coast. Now, I will say this. 2 nights later, Los Angeles screened this, and the response was not as overwhelming and large like a One Battle After Another when both coasts saw it. It was pretty much like Timmy's great, movie's good, and that's fine. But it did not carry that same wave of momentum because it didn't have the because like Josh Safdie was like a film critic. He got his work in at 2 a.m. You know what I mean? Before it was ready to publish. You know what I mean?
Real.
For real. Like I was like, when he said that, I was like, wow, he had an embargo too. But no, I think that like it obviously is what we all thought it would be, which is A24's film. They really don't have anything else. Everything's sort of either crapped out or they haven't pushed it. Like I don't think that Smashing Machine is their film. I think that this is their movie. Like Eric's giving me like the side eye, but it's like, what else is their movie right now? What Entity? No.
No, I
or
mean,
Eternity.
obviously it is their big one, but it is so strange to me that they have both, this and Smashing, and are clearly, it's like a stepchild now.
Well,
But
then
it
they
also
also have the Brownsteins with "If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You" and
Exactly.
Marty Supreme.
Yes. But also too, and they just put up their FYC page for Materialist today. So they are, I mean, that movie, unlike Ari Aster and unlike the Safdies, that movie made money. So like
And
they can
Pillion is on there too.
and Pillion is on there as well.
Love
So like
Pillion.
they have some stuff, but clearly this is going to be the one most likely that moves. I personally have to wait and see it in order before I'm being a little bit of our friend Ann Thompson here when it comes to where I'm going to put Josh Safdie and some of the other techs in here. Clearly, you put Jack Fisk in there because he's a legend. But in terms of like everywhere else, and Timmy's in my by 5 for right now. I just have them on like the lower end because I need to see the film. To your point about the sound, Sophia, that probably is something that they're going to fix in the final cut, and before they ship that out to theaters. You hope maybe some of the editing stuff, some of the fine tuner stuff that will be cut.
Yeah, that was a rougher part of it for me. I couldn't hear some of the dialogue over the score, So I think those things might be, I mean, it could be a me problem with my hearing, but it also could be something that could be fine-tuned later on, because that's the thing, Ryan, you mentioned momentum. And the momentum question is interesting to me because, when those screenings were happening for one battle after another, buzz was building just a few weeks before the release. At Telluride, when we were there, everyone was saying no one had seen it. Like, we knew maybe 4 people total across the coasts that had seen it. And we're just saying it's extraordinary. Just wait. But most people hadn't really seen it up until the 2 weeks prior to release, which I think built really genuine buzz. Here, what we have is certainly buzz from the secret screening, and with what Chalamet is doing to start to promote the film. But this does not come out until Christmas. And the review embargo also hasn't been lifted. So now we have just shy of 3 months, really, until it comes out. So a lot can happen really in between now and then. And that's a really big chunk of time to keep something up, especially when you have a $70 million budget movie that's going to be competing with Avatar and still Wicked, because that thing will also, I think, have legs over Christmas.
Very much so. And I think that the marketing campaign, which I'm not a fan of, and I wasn't a fan of last year for the most part with most of that stuff that Chalamet did. And I mean, I'm not going to repeat the phrase he said at the beginning of that video, but I was just like, if I'm an Academy voter, like I don't know, maybe I'm just old school, but I grew up with Leo, and Leo's our movie star of our generation. And Leo never, now social media is different, stuff like that, but Leo never went out and did, I think, stuff like this, where it was like, because he's working with Scorsese and he's working with these auteurs, and it's like he's not putting his business literally out there like that. And it's very, if you're a voter, I mean, maybe online for his fans and stuff, that's fun and cool, and it's an interesting way to promote a film. Very different than A Complete Unknown. But it's also, I don't also know how this is going to get people in the middle of the country to go and see Marty Supreme when they're like, their first piece of material they see online is him saying that with a bunch of guys with ping pongs on their heads. Like, it's a little bit weird. And it just, to me, you're right, Sophia. Like, this movie comes out in 3 months. It's going to get everything gets swallowed alive when Avatar comes out. Like, and I know people think, oh, does Avatar have relevance, and that the preview screenings the last couple of weeks didn't do well. Avatar 3 will do well. It will make a crap ton of money. It will make at least $1.5 billion. Like, that's something we can just go to the bank, because keep downing Big Jim at your at your own peril. Like, the guy just makes movies that makes a lot of money, and therefore takes a lot of screens. Like we saw with, and I think One Battle After Another is a perfect example. Like, Erik, I know you were joking about the Taylor Swift, but like, she took a lot of screens from One Battle. Avatar took the premium screens, and it kind of halted, probably even, and One Battle's had legs, but it halted some of the progress that movie could have made overall. The fans are going to have to get ready for the articles to be written about that this is probably going to be a flop, because it's a $70 million budget. The marketing's probably going to be another 30, so it's $100 million. It's going to need to make $200 million in order to break even. And I'm sorry, for like a 2-hour and 40-minute ping pong movie, it's not going to do that. It's not. That would be the highest grossing film at A24's history, and
that's what they're counting on. I think that's they're counting on that. I think it can. I think it can be.
You think it can make $200 million worldwide?
I do. Yes.
Part of the movie is basically, I mean, Timmy's character Marty saying that ping pong just isn't big in the States; it's so big internationally. So I don't know if the film could stretch that way. And
obviously,
but
above anything, this is going to be Chalamet's biggest test.
Yeah,
to have a
not Bob Dylan. Yeah. None of that. If he can do that, then it's going to get nominated easily across the board and everything. I mean, I already think it's going to get nominated in a bunch of places, but I'm very excited to see it. And I do love Chalamet. I think he is exactly what we need. We need a movie star, and we need somebody out there that's going to get projects like this greenlit, just like Leo, just like Glenn Powell, just like most of these people, like
And
Michael
we
B.
currently
Jordan,
do not have a review embargo for the film. It is still up
Nope.
in the air.
which
No
is crazy.
reviews are out yet.
Crazy. I know. Well, we'll see. So I think that title definitely got a bump from the festival, even though it wasn't part of the official festival lineup. But I want to play a little stock up, stock down here.
Hell yeah.
Did maybe some titles that you think did really well here that got a little bump, anything that tanked or had a more mixed response at the festival? And also, does NYFF really actually affect the Oscar race when you compare it to other festivals like Cannes or Telluride or TIFF even? Just because of when it falls and the programming that we usually see.
It's a strange thing because obviously New York is the second largest group of Academy voters in the world after Los Angeles. But it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like an awards festival the way that Cannes and Venice and Telluride and Toronto do, which I think is a great thing. It really speaks to the festival being more about the films than about currying favor with voters. I think it's what makes it unique, and especially with the size and the scope of the festival, that it gets to be that. Because it's not, I mean, they have parties and there are like events, but it just doesn't feel like those other festivals. And it's great. It allows it to be still cool and still very New York. And I think I think it's nothing but a benefit for it. And I like that. I appreciate that. And that they've been able to do that for 63 years is shocking.
That's what I really love about it too. And I think Dennis Lim's phenomenal programming and just how much it feels like a festival for New Yorkers, for visitors to the area. Like it does feel different. It still has the glamour of some of the other festivals, but we don't do awards here. It just feels very different. And I think what we can see though is just sometimes shifting reactions to things. So the big one really that I think had a mixed response or that just didn't really play well here was Catherine Bigelow's film, A House of Dynamite, which did pretty well at Venice. It didn't win awards, but I think the reactions to it were pretty strong and signaled a comeback, really, I think, since Detroit. And then the film hit here, and most of the people I talked to really didn't like it. And for me personally, the sort of Rashomon structure that we have took all of the momentum out of the film. I think the first section works very well, but once you finish that first 20, 25 minutes or so, it just totally deflated for me. And I just wasn't invested anymore, which is not what you want, I think, from a film that should feel really high tension and high energy. So I know that we're, I think, all on the same page with this one, but this was one that I really felt like most of the people I talked to did not really enjoy.
Yeah, no, it's the one that I think we had the highest hopes because we hadn't seen it, and then we all saw it, and then Netflix was really big on it. I think a lot of people coming out of it was just like the ending is rough. There actually isn't an ending, to be fair. The structure of it, to your point, Sophia, there are parts of the structures that work really well, and then there are other parts where there are performances that are clearly like doing their best to try to give you something that's not it at all. Idris Elba, I'm looking at you. And so I just think that the script's inconsistent. The visuals, I mean, like it was honestly, it felt more Paul Greengrass than Catherine Bigelow, and that's not a compliment. And so I think while that one didn't do well, I think the one that keeps going up and doing well is Jay Kelly. And Jay Kelly played really well with the crowds here. Clooney was here, Sandler was here. Clooney did 2 Q&As. I went to the second public screening and he was there, and he just has a great time on stage with Baumbach and the whole crew. And besides the one man that was snoring, everybody in my screening was locked in and loved it. And I think that that's a movie that continues to defy whatever was in the water at Venice and do really well at Telluride and do really well here. And then I think the other movie that's done terribly is After the Hunt, and we can put that to bed.
All right, I'll start with House of Dynamite and my thoughts on that. And I am a pretty big Detroit defender in that
I like Detroit.
I think the attempt and the earnestness was there. It didn't really pan out, but I think the intent was genuine. I don't really know what the intent was for House of Dynamite, because it felt like scraps of things that she's done before, and so much better. And I think when you are a director that kind of starts to zero in on a certain style and you can't maintain that, it becomes really, really evident, because this is nothing in the realm of Hurt Locker or Zero Dark 30. And I honestly wish that she would go back to things like Point Break. And I think she's stuck. And it's crazy because the time between Detroit and this has been so long that it's kind of shocking that this is what she would come back with. And yeah, I mean, it was just really disappointing. I'm not a big fan of almost any of the performances. I did like Rebecca Ferguson's section, but I think her and Idris Elba struggle with their accents so hard that I was almost kind of giggling. It's crazy that the majority of Elba's performance is just his voice on a black Zoom screen. It felt like when everybody put black boxes on Instagram during Black Lives Matter, I was just like, what are we doing here? Why is this happening? This is crazy. And then his whole section with First Lady, not Michelle Obama, terrible. Terrible.
I was gonna say, like, the movie feels like 10 years too late. This feels this.
Absolutely.
If we're gonna talk, like, we're gonna talk a lot this season about politics, probably in films, and there's already the pieces out there about one battle after another, and the trades running right wing, loser conspiracy theorists' opinion on one battle after another. Like, we should give a shit. You need to do the same when it comes to this film, because this movie is, I think, what Bret Easton Ellis is talking about, which is like this movie that lives in 2010 and has no teeth on actually, talking about a current administration that's out of control, that would have the keys to the nuclear codes to end the world. And so there's no urgency there. And that's so weird. And it goes back to something that I never thought I would say, which is I miss Mark Bowl, because Mark Bowl had his pulse on the moment with her, with the Hurt Locker, even Detroit and Zero Dark 30. And Noah Oppenheim does not have that at all. This is a script that feels weirdly out of date the moment it starts.
Yeah,
So,
very, very, very much. So some things that I felt almost not had like a mediocre response, but kind of flat, was the majority of the neon winners at Cannes. Just kind of, even Sentimental and Secret Agent were just sort of like respected. I didn't get like a whole lot. I think Surratt ended up being a much bigger response than a lot of their slate.
Huh. I had a different experience. I would say, like, when I just saw Sentimental Value again this morning, but the audience ate it up that I was with. And I think, Ryan, you had a similar experience at your press screening. And I think that what
round of
Neon did
applause, standing ovation in the press screening for
Well,
Sentimental
that's
Value,
great.
which is crazy. I've never seen that before at a New York press screening.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
that's really wild for a New York press screening. And then Neon pulling out all the stops to get Panahi to the US
I'm
when
so
we had
glad that it
news that
finally
he wasn't
happened.
coming, right? And then he did end up having the talk with Scorsese, and I think it was just an accident played pretty well. But I think
Yes.
a lot of the news really from the festival, like you were saying, Erik, was sort of dwarfed by Marty Supreme's supernova star coming in as the secret screening.
Yeah.
It really is. But then also one battle at the beginning of it, we talked about that, I think, on the
That
last
too.
episode. It's like most of the festival was dominated by the fact that we would see all these wonderful films, but everyone's like, yeah, but I'm going to see the VistaVision screening of One Battle, or I'm going to the 70 millimeter IMAX of One Battle. And Sophia and I did that a bunch of times, and Erik and Sophia did that as well. And Sophia's done that by herself.
That's right. One battle took over two festivals. That's
One
so
screening
crazy.
after another.
And then,
Yeah.
like, for But honestly, though, for like 2 nights, yeah, it was Marty Supreme. But really, it sort of settled back in, and then when that was done, that when Marty Supreme was done, then like, oh yeah, we have a Bradley Cooper movie that's supposed to come out,
Hmm.
and nobody. It looked like by your screening, Sophia gave a shit on a Friday night. Like it's
Yeah,
wild.
it is wild. And I do think though it has kind of swung back to the one battle talk again.
Yeah,
So it's like the Marty talk lasted, but we're back at one battle again
but
and,
the
and
I would
talking
say,
all about that.
can I ask you though? I want to ask you this: is that because you've been to New York Film Festival more
Yeah.
than myself and Eric. The closing night film, is it you've been in that room for the closing night screenings for that. It's never like that though, where I mean, like last year Blitz was there and people were trying to, they were pushing Saoirse Ronan off a train just to get a ticket, and
It
Ferrari was the year before, and
I would say it's not totally abnormal, the response. It always slows down a little bit for the closing night film, but it was odd, I think, just how many open seats
yeah, the
there were.
attendance, that's what
That
I was
was,
really, yeah.
I think that did feel different, but the responses that I did see to the film were largely positive. It's gotten
Yeah.
really good reviews, and I do think it is a pretty lovely New York movie. It just has a little bit of the strangeness that we can expect from director Bradley Cooper.
Can I ask you though, because you've seen it, do you think
Mhm.
that it is a film that could break into the Oscar race, or is it just a
Hmm.
because he does, I mean, he's been nominated and he is his first two films, he got, a ton of nominations for both of those. I mean, and we also, Eric and Sophia, you and I have talked about how so many studios have two or three films in the race that everybody's predicting, like, Focus and Neon and A24 and Netflix and Warner Brothers. Is this one of those films that takes one of those spots potentially because it's what, Searchlight, and they don't
It's
have
yeah.
much?
Searchlight doesn't have much, and Rental Family really didn't play very well at Toronto, and that's sort of come and gone, I think. But I think I could see it. I think Will Arnett will probably get in at the Globes, and
Mhm.
that is a good performance. I think I could see possibly screenplay because of how the categories are split. So I don't think it's dead on arrival or anything like that. I think it really just depends how everything else shakes out. Searchlight also has now The Testament of Anne Lee. So
Yeah.
they have an actress campaign there, which is really exciting. But yeah, I think it depends. But I could see it playing pretty well at the regional festivals. It is heartwarming, but I think it feels a little bit slight, I would say.
Okay.
So thinking
Yes.
about the Oscars, let's transition into talking about some of our categories. So Erik, you just posted a piece on cinematography and editing. So let's talk through some of these. So for cinematography this year, we get a short list of anywhere from 10 to 20 films, which I'm really excited to see what that short list looks like. And I think throughout history, we have seen some overlap just in strength with the winner of the cinematography category and possibly director. But in looking back actually at recent winners, I realized that this doesn't actually line up frequently with the best director winner, which I think is an interesting little kernel there, which made me think it could possibly be the year for history to be made for Sinners in particular. Autumn Durald Arkapaw is our cinematographer there. She would be the fourth woman in history to be nominated and the first winner. So that could maybe happen, but I'd love to hear from both of you just how you see the category shaking out, any front runners, any sure things, any surprises. Erik, you can go first since you wrote the piece.
It's funny because my top three in editing, top three in cinematography are the same films, and these are the films that are going to do incredibly well below the line and mostly above the line as well. So it's hard for me not to look at One Battle, Sinners, and Hamnet as just kind of top three contenders across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly where I have them in both categories. I think when you get to 4, 5, 6, 7, you've got a lot of wiggle room there because I think F1, Marty Supreme, Sentimental Value, those films are going to do very well too. It's just a matter of how that's exactly going to shake out. I know I have F1 in the top 5, but I also have it in top 5 for editing. And that kind of paints me in a bit of a corner, because if it's going to get both of those, it would almost make it pretty close, if not absolutely, a top 10 best picture contender too. So I may need to tweak cinematography a little bit and make room for Marty Supreme or Train Dreams, or something else to make it a little more viable. Otherwise, we're looking at Ford v Ferrari Volume 2.
Yeah. Well, I think we can talk about editing really with cinematography too, just because looking at your list, there is a lot of crossover. And I think both categories also signal strength in the best picture race. So these are, I think, technically right below the line categories, but they often really signal a lot of strength in that top category that we see. So I think your F1 pick is, I'll say, interesting. I like it. I think
got a lot
editing,
of
it makes
pushback.
sense. Really?
Yeah, I think editing makes sense. But yeah, having it in cinematography, I got a lot of pushback.
Yeah. Ryan, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I want to just start up at the top and think that like this, I mean, this is where the sign of strength will happen for, I think, One Battle on Oscar night. Because I do think that it's you hate saying the L word, but it's pretty secure in
Lesbian?
that editing.
Wow.
I was
No,
like, which one? The show? The L
Locked. I was talking
like,
about
wow.
Locked. You hate saying that word in October, but the editing win is there. I mean, you watch that film, it's like, how does this movie move at such a pace that it does with that much editing? And I mean, I've seen it 5 times now, and the editing is just. I was watching the cuts as he's doing it, and I mean, there's so many brilliant ones. And then, yeah, Michael Bauman, who's worked with PTA before, and and Andy Jurgensen, who's done the editing here. Those are longtime PTA collaborators. Jurgensen worked as an assistant before he became the full-time editor as well, too. So, and what's cool is I saw an event at Kodak happening with the entire cinematography team and camera operating team, and Andy Jurgensen there as well, having a conversation this weekend in LA. And I expect those conversations for One Battle After Another to be happening. Our good friend Kevin McCarthy is the one moderating that in LA this weekend. And guess what? Tickets sold out immediately. So I expect those to be happening most of the year. But if you're looking at past One Battle After Another, then yeah, I think Sinners, well, Hamnet especially, I think is pretty good in both of these categories. Sinners, yes, it has the potential for history in both. It also has the potential to maybe get one and miss another too. Like, I think editing is more vulnerable than cinematography.
Yeah.
The one that I keep an eye on here, and I feel is moving up as we see movies and as I've rewatched it, and is because it's such a technical prowess, is Frankenstein. These are craftspeople that have worked with Guillermo del Toro for such a long time, mostly probably Dan Louston in cinematography than the editing of that film, but definitely cinematography. Louston nominated twice before for The Shape of Water and Nightmare Alley, which was a bit of a surprise, I think, back a couple years ago for Nightmare Alley. And so I wouldn't be surprised. I have him in right now. And the other one I have is Alfredo Valenzo for Train Dreams. If they see
Adolfo
Train Dreams,
Valesso.
yeah, if they see Train Dreams, my God, that is one of the most beautiful films you will see this year. Period. End of story. So I have that in there as of right now. But then obviously, Sophia, you saw Marty Supreme, Darius Kanji, who's had a really big year. Like, he had this and he had Eddington. He is also, the Academy in this branch in cinematography. They love their favorites. And so I was thinking of him. I was also thinking of like Robbie Ryan for Begonia. I was thinking about Linus Sandgren for even something like Jay Kelly. So, those are the ones I'm sort of keeping an eye on here. But then, like, yeah, it would be very interesting to see, does any of the Neon films break through into these categories to show a sign of strength? It would be interesting to see if any of them would. I think The Secret Agent in cinematography would be one that would be a sign of strength for it. I don't have it high up on the list right now. It's like in the 11 to 15, but that's a potential one. A sign of strength for like Sentimental Value would be for that in editing as well. Such
Yeah,
a
that's why I have it at 6
yeah,
because
it's
Yeah.
such a patiently
it's one of
edited
those
film.
that like that tells you the story once these nominations come out.
But if they
Yeah.
really do love A House of Dynamite, that's an I know we all have problems with it, but there are people that do like that editing, and it is an edited film put all together, and so
It is an edited film. That is a
yeah
fact.
yeah. Well, it sometimes in this category it does become like your F1 stuff. It's the most edited, right? It's not necessarily the best edited, and I think of the Adam McKay films that get into this category all the time too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think with House of Dynamite, I was thinking about putting that one in too, just because of potential sound crossover. But I also remembered that Kirk Baxter didn't get in for Mank. That was one of the misses for that film
Hmm.
that happened. And I could kind of see that repeating. Right now, I have for editing One Battle, Sinners, Hamnet, Marty Supreme, and Sentimental Value. I put Sentimental Value in really just on the strength of the movie. This could be one of those things that pops up. If it's top 5, we could see it there. And it does have some really cool editing flourishes and montages that we see in the film. But
Yeah.
this is one for me. I hate saying it, Ryan, just like you, but like One Battle, I think this is a win. It's kind of walking in the door with potentially. It just feels right for that movie. And then I think also if we think about editing and sound crossover that we
yeah, the
see
sound
often, the sound, I think sound is going to be nominated there, could potentially win. Then
win.
you have Sinners, if that's getting in here, I think being a musically oriented and dominated film, we could see that in sound. I would love if the sound work in Hamnet was recognized because I think it's pretty brilliant. But
That would be
that
like
could
a like
Johnny
almost
Burns. I mean,
Johnny Byrne.
he is a winner, and the sound
yeah
in the film is a literal character.
yeah
Mm-hmm.
literally in
So
that trailer too.
yeah, we'll
Yeah.
talk about that category, I think, at another point. But right now, I feel like we are seeing at least really some big crossover between these two categories. And I'll just say with Marty Supreme and cinematography too, because I really have practically the same list between editing and cinematography. I just instead, I actually did bump up Jay Kelly and I
Mm,
put that in my top 5 because I think that work is pretty beautiful
there's
from
some
Lena
great stuff in there.
Sangren.
Yeah.
But Darius Kanji for Marty Supreme, I loved how that movie looked. But again, this could be the case where here we go again. It could just be one battle. But I'm excited that we're starting to talk about tech categories though, because
Yeah.
this is where things I think can get really interesting.
I think
Can
it's
I oh,
crazy that the shortlist for cinematography is going to be an open-ended, like
Yes.
10 to 20
Sliding scale.
sliding
Yeah.
scale. That's not what they
it's
do
wild.
for these categories. So I mean, obviously it makes it difficult to know how many will make it in. I don't imagine it's going to be more than 15.
No.
But yeah, I'm curious.
Can I just throw out like something I hope is on the on the short list, and hopefully that we're talking about throughout the season, hopefully guilds and other people can see. If we're talking about just like a dark horse film, and it is the dark horse film, I think for most categories, but I think the editing and weapons is one of the keys to why that movie works. And to speak to House of Dynamite, a movie that does the same sort of structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But does it in a way that's more effective and
Absolutely.
engrossing. And
Much more.
I would say to people out there, voters out there, people in guilds out there, consider that film as well. And then the big films that we haven't mentioned that we should just keep in consideration just because of how technically big and profound they are the works of both Wicked for Good and Avatar. Avatar especially, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is one to keep in mind for cinematography and editing. Those are people that have worked with James Cameron for a long time. I don't necessarily think that they're going to get in, but they're definitely ones to keep an eye out that could take some spots away on these long lists than
Yeah.
anybody else. But yeah, I mean, Alice Brooks is getting awards with John M. Chu at regional festivals. I know that, say what you want, sight unseen in that film, only seen the trailers and stuff, but that
I
is,
think we've seen it.
I understand, Eric, but I'm just saying that is something to consider in all of this as well too.
Yeah, and
I
I
can't
think
wait to put production design images from Frankenstein and Wicked together, because they basically have the exact same room with that window there. It's the same.
that lighting. We will talk about Wicked for Good and Avatar Fire and Ash. I always have to remind myself what the title of that is because I just keep calling it Avatar when we talk about costume design and production design. But I think that'll do it for today's show. Ryan, can you tell everyone where they can find you and all of your great work?
Sure, you can find all my work here at awardswatch.com. You can, if you like the podcasts, also have Director Watch. We're starting a new series this week. Jay and I are talking about the Hughes brothers. First up is Menace to Society, a really great dark film that is a vital piece of cinema that I hope that everybody can catch up and listen to. We had a really great conversation about that. And I'm really excited to explore the interesting month of films from this duo of brothers, and then before we get to our last series of the year. And yeah, go to the website. I have coverage from NYFF talking about Sentimental Value, which I've come around to love, and By Gan's Resurrection, and After the Hunt, and also my full review of Mr. Scorsese, which is up on the website right now.
Thank you. There's a line from After the Hunt that I can't stop saying, but I'm not going to say on this episode today. Erik, where can people find you?
They can find me being supportive of After the Hunt because I actually really love the movie.
Oh my God.
I
Julia is so
love
good.
She is good.
I
So is Stolberg.
Yeah, Spielberg and Roberts, could just watch them in several things together, because who doesn't want like a hot woman with a gay husband? It's absolutely the best thing ever. But yeah, no, I really do like it. It's absolute edgelord behavior, and people are really mad about it, and it's actually kind of fun. So you can find me obviously on awardswatch.com. I did also a few capsules of New York Film Festival, and October predictions are coming out in the below the line categories now, as we just discussed. And yeah, just more to come.
And you can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, Letterboxd and Blue Sky at Sophia Sim. You can find all of my work at Awards Watch. I reviewed Anemone and have an interview with Ronan Day Lewis up, and also have a review of Marty Supreme coming whenever that is ready and the embargo lifts. And then more fun interviews coming very soon. In the meantime, please sign up for the newsletter where you can catch all of our reviews, interviews, and podcasts weekly. But that'll do it for today's show. Thanks, everyone. Bye.